This is Rising Phoenix Podcast. I'm your host, Michael Rhodes. This podcast is for men struggling with an unwanted divorce. I interview experts on divorce, mental health, and I provide insights gained from my own divorce journey. You are not alone. Join me. Joining me today is Ann Hince. Ann, let's just jump right into this. Why don't you tell us a little bit about yourself?
Sure. I call myself an inner explorer because I've developed some superpowers that I did not know were available to us before. So I've released my traumas and a lot of programming from childhood and got to the place where I can put my awareness inside my body and release tension in my bones and tissue using the focus of my awareness. And that's given me some understandings that I didn't have before that I think might be useful.
I mean, yeah, that I read sort of your bio, and I was sort of fascinated by this, and by this topic. And it's come up before in some ways. I'm sure you've probably heard of the book "The Body Keeps the Score," right?
Yes.
Um, it, it's sort of a accepted, I think, view that trauma is stored in the body. But and I don't doubt that, but it's just very abstract to me. How do we know that that's the case? And maybe that's not even the right question. How does that? I can wrap my head around my memories are stored in my brain, right? It's this big spongy thing up here, and it keeps all my stuff. I use it in the same kind of capacity, right? A memory comes from up here, it's up here, it's stored up here. That makes sense to me, right? But trauma is an experience or your reaction to an experience anyhow, because some people can have trauma over things that aren't necessarily traumatic to other people, right? It's up to the person. But how is that stored in the body? Like, what's the mechanism? I kind of can't wrap my head around it.
Yeah, that's a very complex question.
Yes. Yeah. No pressure. No pressure.
But I would say it's not even that our memories are stored in our heads. Because once I was able to put my awareness on tension inside the body itself, I would focus on the tension. And as it released, a memory would pop into my mind. So I realized the memories were actually stored in the body, kind of with the tension.
Hmm.
So it just kind of pops into our mind. So you could call that our head, or,
Right.
but I'm not sure exactly where it is, but it pops in to my mind and then it just disappears. So
Hmm.
I know those memories are stored inside with tension. So let's just look at a couple of examples. So if you have a memory of something traumatic that happened to you, right, and you bring that memory back to mind, right, you think about it again, you can probably, if you have this self-awareness, you can probably feel there's some tension coming back into your body.
Hmm.
That's it's stored together. The
Hmm.
memory and the tension is stored together. Or think about if you have a scar somewhere on your body. If you look at the scar, you can probably remember when that happened, right? So that memory is connected to that physical dis-ease inside of the body.
Okay.
Right? So that
That I can wrap my head around. That makes a little bit more sense to me. So it's not it is it's all encompassing, right? So your memories are not just the thing that happened, but also sort of your physical state at the time, or it can put you in a certain physical state. I would guess back to that time, right? In a way, right? Because if there's tension there, that means you were probably tensed up during whatever that was or whatever, right?
right,
I'm
right.
guessing.
And there's emotions that are stored inside there from those. And what we see as attention, trauma, we talk about big T's and little T's.
Hmm.
But in my journey, I've realized that we hold so much as tension inside. It's not just the big traumas, it's not just the little traumas, it's the phrases our parents used to say to us. It's
Hmm.
literally the programming. And even when we're a child, right, when we're a child and we're told that we can't do something that we want to do, we will hold ourselves tight
Hmm.
because we're not able to express what we really want to express, right? We really want to say, heck, I want to do that, let me do that. Right?
Right.
We
Right.
don't, we hold ourselves tight, and that tension gets stored inside. So at the point I'm at now, right, I'm releasing tension in my bones, in my skull and my jaw bones and all sorts of bones in my head. And I had no idea that tension was there before
Hmm.
because it was subconscious. So we push all those emotions that we never expressed down into our subconscious mind, which is really our body, and we lose awareness of it, right? We don't realize we're holding tension inside. It just gets shoved down there. And we can reverse that process by doing certain techniques or inner work. We can reverse that process and we can become aware of it again, and then we can release it and let it go. And in
Oh,
that process, we're changing who we are, right? Which comes back to what we're going to talk about on this podcast, talking about divorce and such. We really want to change who we are going forward.
yeah. I mean, that opens up a whole host of questions. Okay, so I think it all starts from your childhood, right? You talked about that, and I think all of our adulthood for sure is shaped by the events of our childhood. So it starts there. And you talked about sort of connecting with the subconscious to I guess sort of find some of these memories. Because I think for me, there's a lot of my childhood I don't remember, and I don't know how much of that is trauma and how much of it is just I don't know. I smoked a lot of pot when I was a teenager. I don't know. But if how much of it do you have to connect with some of these? I mean, I guess it sounds like you have to connect with these early memories of trauma, whatever version of, big or little, in order to release it. How do you do that? Like, how do you bring the unconscious conscious?
Right, because it's subconscious, right? So how
Right,
can we be conscious of it?
right, right.
Right. Well, and it's really those first 7 years of life where we're programmed, right? Because our brain waves are wide open. We're like sponges. We just take every single thing we experience in. So that's kind of really our base programming, and we kind of replay those things over and over again in life. So if you had parents that had relationship issues, you absorb those and you kind of start replaying it. But luckily for us, we have two portals into our subconscious mind. We have our memories and we have our emotions. So we don't have to be able to remember everything from childhood if we experience emotions now, right? So if I'm really triggered, if I'm triggered by something, a thought, it might be a thought or something that happens, I'm emotional around that. And I can use those emotions and work with them to release them. And in that process, it's opening up the subconscious mind. And a memory of a previous time we felt the same way might come to mind. And then we can work on that. Because, like you, I remembered very little of my childhood before I started doing this work. But I remember quite a bit of it now because I've opened up my subconscious mind.
So in some ways, if I'm being honest, that scares the shit out of me. If I'm being honest, right? Because that means that
Yeah.
I could connect with these. There's a reason, I think, a reason why I can't remember some stuff for sure. I'm pretty sure of that, right? And it's not a good reason.
Right. Our
And
ego
so
wants to protect us.
sure, and so therefore, whatever that means that whatever it is protecting me from is probably pretty fucking scary. And so let sleeping dogs lie and just ignore it, which I know is not good advice. I'm aware of this.
Right.
But I'm just being honest. It scares the shit out of me.
Yeah.
Okay,
And it did me
so
too. It did
of
me too.
course, how could
But
it
one
not?
thing, one thing I realized fairly early on in my journey was that our memories and the emotions attached to those memories are really just energy that is stuck in the body. It wants to release. And once it is released, then there's freedom. That freedom is on the other side. All we have to do is find a way to allow it to release. So if we can get our minds around that and just count ourselves as an instrument, right, a string instrument, and we're out of tune.
Hmm.
All we have to do is tune ourselves, so we let go of that energy that's stuck inside, and then we are tuned.
Oof, okay. It is before we start diving into sort of the techniques and stuff, because I definitely want to do that. Is is the repressed stuff and the traumas from childhood, do you think that, and this might not be, I don't know how this would be, it's a fair question. Do we repeat things in a way because of not only are they patterns and things like you said, the first 7 years, like this is, so if you've seen parents in conflict, you're going to probably in some way recreate that because that's what you know. But do we also sort of attach, because it is an emotion and an energy, do we attach so say I'm rejected as a child by my parents for whatever. I want to play guitar, and they're like, "You can't play guitar. You're stupid," or whatever. Do I attach other rejections to that? Does it become sort of like a chain in a way, or like, you know what I'm saying?
Right. It is. It's kind of like a rut in the road, and you keep going down the same rut and you make it deeper and deeper and deeper. So yes, it is. And it's we're not replaying the same events as such. We're
Right.
replaying the same feelings,
Yeah.
like the same stance, the same posture, the same set of physical sensations. That's what we're replaying. So it might be all sorts of different events that create the same feeling, and that's what we're replaying.
Yeah. I mean, it makes sense to me. I know some of this seems woo-woo type, like, you know, hippie stuff or whatever, but like I think there's truth to this. Like, and I'm a 6'2" bald white dude. Like this is probably not my demographic per se, but I just think there's something to this. There's something fascinating about it because there are really smart folks like Bessel, right? The body keeps the score. Like there are people that are way smarter than me that are telling me that this is a thing. And I have to give I have to have some mindedness to it and because not for nothing, I've done every other, and I'm okay in life, but there are definitely some depressions and sadness and things that come up and reoccurring events that come up. So I'm open-minded to trying things to sort of heal, because I think that's the ultimate goal, right? At least for anyone that's been through a lot of shit, and divorce is it's one of those things pretty high up there on the list. So, okay, so I've decided I want to heal from, and I know my childhood has many wounds. So, okay, I want to heal from those things. I want to heal from this divorce because there's some pains that are very similar. If I self-reflect enough, I'm going to realize that. How do I do that? What do I do? What's step number one? Because I like to do things in steps.
Okay, me too. So before I go there, let me just say that I was a software engineer.
Hmm.
So I I'm relatively intelligent. I'm not all that intelligent, but
You
it's
said
not that woo-woo.
what I say. Well, it has that sort of connotation. I'm not saying it wrong, but I mean it has that sort of aura or well, because it's not
Right.
a manly thing, it's a more feminine thing, which is fine. But you just said something that I say all the time, which is essentially I'm smart enough to know I'm not that smart, but I am smart enough to know that I'm not that smart. So anyway, um,
Yes.
what is
Okay, but
step?
one more thing though.
Yes.
But because I have that engineering background, I like to have evidence, right? So I have had X-rays taken, and I can
Oh,
see on the X-rays my skull bones have moved. They've shifted because of this inner work, right? My
holy
my neck
shit.
is straighter than it was. I'm 3/4 of an inch taller than I was because I've released this burden that I've been carrying all these years.
That's
So
just
I
crazy.
know. Yeah, right. But I mean, it's very different me telling you that this
Yeah, of
works and
course.
showing you that it
Yeah,
works.
100%. And that's why, I wanted to have you on is because, I knew it wasn't just talk. There's got to be some evidence. There's got to be some steps, some things, right? So, because that
Right,
does interest me. I mean, anyone could say anything, right? Could say
right.
whatever. But if there's some kind of evidence and analysis or whatever behind it, then I'm very interested. So what is step one? I've decided my mind is open. What am I doing?
Okay, first step is to start noticing during the day when you're triggered, when you're emotional. Because unless you can notice that, you can't do anything about it. Right? So I would ask myself during the day, how am I feeling right now?
Hmm.
And I would give some words to it, like an emotional word, right? The tricky thing with men and boys is that they are so told not to feel their feelings.
Yes, amen. Yeah,
And so it's hard even to put words to it, right? Put words to an emotion.
100%.
So yeah, so there's almost more work to do. So that's the first step. Just start noticing and just notice during the day over and over again. Ask yourself, how am I feeling right now? And then I would ask myself, do I want to feel this way again?
Mm.
And the answer is usually no, because I didn't feel good most of the time. I was really stressed. I had PTSD and
Mm.
I was always fearful. which came from childhood stuff. So once you're aware and you're able to say, okay, look at me, I'm starting to get angry, I'm starting to get frustrated, right? Then you have like a separation from it. You're looking at yourself rather than being angry, you're noticing that you are angry.
Hmm.
Then I use the technique that's called EFT, which is short for Emotional Freedom Technique. It's also called tapping
Okay.
because we tap on certain places, specific points, always the same points, as we're talking something through.
Hmm.
It looks really hokey.
Yeah.
It's a really strange technique,
Hmm.
but you can do it on your own. Go to your bedroom, your bathroom, and tap there. And it's really powerful. It was actually developed by a chemical engineer, which actually made me feel more comfortable doing it.
Yes.
And it kind of creates an interrupt in the nervous system.
Hmm.
As you're thinking something through or bringing up an emotion, you would normally react in a certain way. Like your nervous system would feel a certain way. And the tapping allows it to release that energy that's it's storing. So what you do is you work on an emotion. So if you're feeling something right now, right, you'd verbalize it, right? I'm feeling angry, right? I'm really angry with my ex-wife, whoever.
Right.
And you would keep saying that, keep feeling it, and tap through it over and over again until the emotion has released.
Hmm.
Now, that's part of opening the subconscious mind. So, as that happens, another thought might come to mind or a memory of why you're angry with them. And then you would tap through that.
Hmm.
So, in that way, it kind of unwinds the subconscious mind. And you can go back and back to childhood because it reminds me of when my dad did something, right?
Okay. So the tapping is one location that's comfortable for you or hits home for you, or like how do you discover like where, because you just did a bunch that was all over, right?
Right. There's
So
specific points. There's 9 specific points. It's
oh,
always
there
the
are
same
specific
points.
ones. Oh,
Yes.
okay, cool. Well, let's go over those. Which are the what are the nine?
Okay. So the beginning point is the karate chop point on the side of your hand.
Okay.
Okay, and that's where you do a setup phrase. You say, even though I'm angry at my ex-wife, that's my truth in this moment, and it's okay that I'm feeling angry with my ex-wife. Right, and then you go to the point. So the first point is the crown point on the top of the head,
Okay.
and you're tapping firmly enough to do something, but you're not hurting yourself.
Right. Right.
So it's kind
Right.
of a medium tap. The
Gotcha.
next point is the beginning of the eyebrow,
Okay.
and these are all the ends of meridian systems, so energy systems within the body.
So this is where the nerves sort of run to a point or something of that nature?
Yeah, it's more acupressure type, the Chinese meridian system.
Gotcha.
So it is energy moving through the body. The next one's the bone on the edge of the eye,
Okay.
then the bone under the eye, then on the upper lip, then on the chin, then on the collarbone, and the last point is about 3 inches under the armpits, where you have a bra strap. Is what I normally say, but you might not have a bra
No, I
strap.
do not have a bra strap. I can. There's been no cross dressing in my life. Um,
So that's it. That's one round of EFT.
okay, so do you do it in an order like that, like you just did, and then how long per section or points?
About 5 to 7 taps. It
Okay,
doesn't really matter. Um,
and then do you repeat, or is it like so you get through 5 to 7 taps and each 9 points, do you go back, or like how? What's the? I'm just curious, just trying to get step by step type stuff. Like, is it you go back through until you sort of feel um
yeah. Some people
better?
might ask themselves at the beginning, okay, how angry am I on a scale of 0 through 10? If I'm a 7, right, then I'll do some tapping, go through once, check in again. Is it still a 7? Is it a 6 or a 5? If it's still a 5 or 6 or 7, I'd keep tapping. I'd keep tapping until it was a 0, 1, or 2.
And in your sort of peak, how often were you doing this? Like when you were sort of in your journey, was this something
Right.
you and did you set aside time and were you like, okay, this is my I got to go work on my stuff. I'm going to think about some shit and see what happens, or just did you go through as life was coming at you?
Well, first of all, I did it as life was coming at me.
Mm,
But I noticed I was changing rapidly. I
mm.
was becoming less reactive. I was more peaceful inside, and I wanted more, and I wanted it faster. so,
Amen. That sounds like my
so,
kind of thing. Yes.
So I wrote down all my childhood memories that I could think of, all my traumas, big traumas, little traumas, programming, phrases my dad used to say, all of them. And I tapped for about an hour to an hour and a half each night for weeks. I don't remember how long exactly, but I went through my whole list and it was multiple sheets of paper. And I would work on one trauma each night.
Hmm.
And then I'll check it again the next night. Is it gone? Is there still something there? Because as you open the subconscious mind, you start getting more details of the story. So my biggest trauma was finding my mother dead on the bathroom floor when I was 19.
Oof.
And the first time I tapped, the first when I learned about EFT was at a doctor's office, and he knew the technique. He taught me the technique,
Hmm.
and he tapped with me about my mother's death, which was great. And I went home and I could think about her death for the first time without the tears there.
Hmm.
But that was the first time I tapped on it. Okay, I
Hmm.
tapped on it again, and then I got more details of the story, which had been hidden underneath the emotions, underneath the tears that I hadn't let out. And so the story became longer because I could think of more aspects of it. So I would tap through it again and again from beginning to end, just telling it out loud as a story, this happened and that happened. And until it became boring, there was no
Hmm.
emotion left in the story at all. And that's when I knew that it was cleared out.
Oh man, that's so heavy. Um, I'm almost taken aback, but because it reminds me. I mean, I lost my father at 22. I didn't. I wasn't around. I was serving in the Navy, and he had lung cancer, and but there's definitely trauma around that. So I was just sort of thinking about that, because I wasn't there to say goodbye, type of thing. I don't know even know if that was necessarily a bad thing because he wasn't in the best shape. Um, did you have you found it to be something? Is it something that you do now, sort of as maintenance?
I don't do it very often now because I found that my self awareness went deeper and I didn't need to use it. So I became aware of the physical sensations underneath the emotions.
Hmm.
So when you're feeling angry, you're actually holding tension in your body, right?
Oh
It
yeah,
might be,
so that I
right? It
can
might be,
absolutely agree with 1,000%. Yes.
okay, so can you tell me when you're feeling angry, where are you feeling it? What is the
Um,
tension?
I would say my jaws for sure. I get very tense, very clinchy. Just my whole upper body in a way, almost like not so much the spine muscles. That's more stress, but just um, shoulders, uh, just my whole entire upper body and my jaw for sure. I clench. I'm a clincher. Yeah. So yeah.
Okay, so that's great. That is a deeper level of self awareness. When I started this journey, I couldn't tell you any of that.
Yeah.
I had to do all this EFT, and then I became aware of that.
Mm.
And now, when you're aware of that, right? So I could tap on, I'm feeling this anger in my jaw, and I can feel myself clenching as I'm
Mm.
tapping. I can use those words, and that allows me to focus on the clenching
Mm.
as I'm tapping, and that helps it release. Or what I realized is I could actually hold my awareness on the tension in the jaw itself, focus on it for long enough that it would release.
Mm.
And then I would do it again. So, kind of think the thought that was making me angry, feel that clenching in my jaw, hold my focus on it until there was a release. And I would do that again and again and again
Mm.
until there was no more anger there.
That's in some ways, I mean, at least that portion sounds like as long as you're acknowledging or aware of what you're actually feeling,
Right.
being mindful, paying attention.
Right. And that's it. Paying attention is that word, at tension. It's two words stuck together, at tension. So I would hold it at tension. So I wouldn't even breathe, right?
Mm.
I would just feel that clenching in my jaw and I would actually kind of stop and hold myself like a statue, no breathing until I could feel something release.
Interesting.
And then I would just do that over and over and over again.
So you got to a point where you sort of I don't know if cleared is the right word, but maybe it is. You cleared your traumas and now you're so aware of your mental state or your emotional state, that you don't have to it doesn't get stored per se, right? So you don't have to clear it because you're dealing with it as it's happening. Is that what I'm hearing?
Right. And I'm also still looking for deeper,
Sure.
deeper emotions, right? So I watch the news now. For a long time I didn't, but I want to know what triggers me. And I want to bring up those deep emotions that
Oh,
were stored
that's
in me.
that's wow. Okay. Yeah, I don't watch the news for a whole host of reasons. I
Right.
mean,
And I
I never,
didn't.
yeah, I mean, I don't feel it I never watch it regardless of what happens. I never really feel warm and fuzzy after watching it. But that makes sense though. If you're trying to trigger yourself, you're probably
Yeah.
going to see it or hear about something that will relate to you or trigger you in some way eventually, right? If you watch enough news.
Right, right. Disgust is a word, an emotion that was ingrained in me from my brother and my dad. So I feel a lot of disgust with the news. So I go inside and I feel it. Like, where is that disgust? It's deep inside my solar plexus. So I go inside, I find it, and I feel it and allow it to release.
Is this how emotionally difficult is it to do the initial clearing out stuff? Like it seems like it would be a fairly daunting task.
It can be. And, you know, as I said, those tears, all those emotions, are just stuck energy.
Mm,
If you can look at it like that, you don't have to get attached to it. Right? You're
yeah.
just clearing out your vessel. You're just letting all that tension go. You're letting that dis-ease go
Mm,
so that you can come out into freedom on the other side. And it's hard to explain to someone who hasn't done this work, but the
yeah.
freedom on the other side is huge. It is so freeing. And then you're actually it's kind of like you're a different person, right? You start attracting different things into your life.
Mm,
Whereas if you don't do this work, you're still going to attract the same things over and over again.
yeah.
So, if you're getting divorced because of something that, your spouse didn't like in you,
Right.
or you didn't like in them, right? You're
Right.
likely to encounter that again
Yeah,
in someone else.
I'm 100% with you on that one. I think if you don't do any work to change who you are, you're going to attract what you've attracted. I think that's why, second marriages end in divorce 17 to 18% higher than first marriages, because I think people are just repeating patterns. So I am absolutely with you there. How long did it take you to sort of wrap your head around it in a way that was like, okay, this is a thing. Like what kind of time frame is that where you felt where you lost your skepticism maybe, and then from like when you finally did that to feeling like you made some significant progress. Like what kind of time frame are those two things?
Okay, good question. So I lost my skepticism pretty early on
Mm,
because I learned this technique at the doctor's office.
mm,
And then I went home and I learned everything I could about it because it was given away by Gary Craig, this chemical engineer, for free. So anyone could go online and learn it.
mm,
And I did that. But as I said, I have this engineering mind. So I wanted to know that it worked before I wasted time on it.
sure.
So at the time, I had a 17-year-old cat at home and his kidneys were starting to fail.
Mm,
So I had to give him a daily shot, a daily injection of saline solution. And I hated needles. So the first time I gave him one, my hand was shaking so badly. This was not going to happen every day. I just couldn't do it every day. So I thought, okay, let me try out this technique. I've just learned it. Good test for it.
sure.
So I did. I tapped about every aspect of it. So I tapped about my hand shaking. I
Mm,
tapped about my fear of hurting my cat. And I tapped about all the injections I had had in my lifetime, which was a lot back then. And the next day, when I gave him that shot, the needle slid right in.
mm,
All that fear that had been living inside of me the day before had totally disappeared. So that's when I realized, first, I realized how powerful EFT was, but I also realized that freedom that comes from letting that emotion go. And that's where I wanted to be. I was determined to be that person without all that fear inside of me. So that's when I really took it on.
mm,
But it probably took me a few months to really know changes were happening.
mm,
And that's probably when I started writing everything down and really applying it every day.
mm. I mean, it's also isn't it reflected in like the animal kingdom? Like, don't animals sort of not they don't tap obviously, but don't they shake and like release their trauma in that manner? Isn't doesn't that occur in animals?
Yeah, yeah, they shake, they let it off straight away because they haven't been programmed to suppress it all.
It's just that I mean, I've seen videos of that and stuff, and it's like, wow, that's crazy. Like that's yeah, we're programmed to not what and back to sounds like maybe you had some similar experiences in childhood. I know for me, I don't know if it would have made a difference in my family and in my community, generation, whatever, as if I would have been a female. But I know for sure as a male, I was told to, if you don't stop crying, I'm going to give you something to cry about. That kind of shit.
Yeah,
So
we had that too.
yeah, so I'm sure, because I think it wasn't that our parents, um, and that's not, I mean, that's this is the whole can of worms, perhaps, but I don't think it was, just shut up because that's annoying me. I think it was, I can't handle your emotions because I can't handle mine. So you got to put that shit to rest, right? Like I can't deal with that. Shut up. Like I can't cry my own tears. I don't want to deal with yours. Um, so I
And
imagine,
I think they were programmed too, right? They
oh
did it
yeah,
because their
yeah,
parents did
no,
it.
oh, a
Yes.
1000%, yeah, no, 1,000%. I think that's something I struggle with. Is sort of, and I really got to get past it in some ways. Like I hold a lot of contempt for my mother because it wasn't my dad that was like that. Part of the reason was my dad was a truck driver, so he wasn't around much, but my mom was, and I feel like a lot of my issues come from that, right? That sort of repression of emotions and whatnot. And there's many other things, but I struggle because people say, "Wow, they did the best with what they could," and I think, "Golly, their best sure did fucking suck." And so it's hard for me to like let go of that, but I really got to work on that because I don't want to it affects my relationship with my mother, which probably affects a whole host of things that I don't even realize. But did you is your father still alive? Do you mind if I ask?
No,
Okay. Um, so you didn't have to do any like work around that. In other words, like in sort of repairing yourself, you didn't have to repair that relationship.
I had to repair it inside of me.
Yeah, yeah,
Yeah.
I'm sure that was, I mean, a part of it, right?
Right.
What was it?
Absolutely. Yeah,
What
it
was it?
is because the contempt you hold for your mother is inside of you.
Yeah,
Right?
true,
It's
true.
not in her. It just
No,
lives inside of
no,
you. It's
yeah.
dis-ease inside of you. So yeah, I did that with all my family members. And I did it with EFT. So, with EFT, we can tap on ourselves and our memories and how we feel about these other people. But there's also another aspect of EFT that I do as well, which I call air tapping. So I would imagine that maybe my mother, right, was sitting on my lap or was right in front of me. Her head was right in front of me. And I would tap on her. Kind of,
Mm.
it's air tapping because I'm just tapping in the air on her head.
Right, right.
And I would tell her, I would talk to her and tell her everything that I would have wanted to tell her, right, as a
Mm,
child when I was going through all that, but I never said it.
sure.
So I held it all inside. I would tell her the absolute truth over and over until the emotion has left me, right? That contempt has left me. That's when you know that it's no longer inside of you, right? You've let go of that dis-ease.
Yeah, and I think that's so I've definitely written letters. When I say letters, maybe a couple, and I've certainly expressed it to folks. I mean, even on this fucking podcast, but like to therapists, and I always feel like I've acknowledged it. I understand it. Like, yep, she did this shit and it was terrible and it sucked and I wish she wouldn't have done it. And it's what I'm saying is I think that it's not a matter of just saying it once or twice or even maybe 10 times, right? Whatever. I don't know the number. I don't know that anyone knows until you know, right? But I think there's a tendency because I'll see this with guys. I also run a support group on Facebook. I'll see this with guys in there and they'll be like, you know, um, it's been 6 months and I thought I was over it and or I did this thing and I thought that meant I was good or whatever. And it's just not so simple, right? It's much more complex or at least it takes more effort sometimes than we think it should. I think that's kind of the point I'm trying to make. Like sometimes doing it one time doesn't solve doesn't clear the trauma, it doesn't solve the problem, it doesn't make the ultimate sort of effect or whatever, right? It's not a one and done is what I think is what I'm trying to say.
Right, right. And think about it. If you have something traumatic happen, you want to tell the story, right, to this friend and all these other people until you've said it enough times,
Yeah.
right? It's the same thing. These memories are stuck inside. And if you tell them enough times, and the
Right.
tapping makes it go faster, right? The tapping helps the energy release faster.
Hmm.
So you don't have to tell it quite as many times,
Right.
but you just say it over and over again until it's all spent, and
Yeah.
then it's gone. And then another aspect may come up, right? And a
Sure.
memory, a more detailed memory might pop into your mind the next day, and then you can work on that too. And you just that way you just clear it all out from inside of you.
Well, yeah, Ann, thanks for doing this. This is fascinating stuff. I'm going to dive in and learn a little bit more. How can people find you? What's the best way for people to get in touch with you if they're interested in what you're doing?
I have my website, annhince.com. The x-rays are on there if you need to see some evidence.
Cool.
I'm also pretty active on Facebook.
Okay.
And I also had a book that I wrote that goes through the steps one by one. It's called A Pathway to Insight. And I have a YouTube channel that explains a lot of this as well.
Okay. Is the book Amazon or
Amazon.
website? Okay. Awesome.
Amazon,
Okay.
yes.
Oh, well, thank you so much for doing this. So the last question that I ask everyone is, what words of wisdom would you impart to a man that is just beginning his divorce journey?
I would say to take responsibility for all of your emotions, for everything that happens. We want to blame someone else a lot of the time, but that blame lives inside of us, right? The anger, the emotions, they all live inside of us. So take responsibility for those emotions and work through them. Find a way. If it's EFT, if that's great. If you can just sit in those feelings, that's great too. But work through them, because it's hard for someone to understand if they have not done this work. But when you do this work, you change, and what you attract back changes too. So it's worth doing as soon as you can.
Thank you so much, Ann, for doing this. I really appreciate it.
Thank you. Great questions.
Thank you. Thank you so much for watching and or listening. If you are feeling alone on this journey, please join our Discord server. Becoming a phoenix is not a solitary act. It is one achieved through community. Our Discord server is just that, a community of men fighting to survive, thrive, and rise from their divorce. Go to risingphoenixpodcast.com/Discord for information on how to join and what is contained in our Discord server. Please join us.